Have you ever wondered about Blackbeard's origin, why he doesn't sleep, or how he can eat multiple devil fruits? Well, I have, and it's been something I wanted to try and figure out for a while. In recent chapters, we learn from Saturn that he knows about Blackbeard having a special bloodline. Some people theorize that this means Blackbeard is also a buccaneer like Kuma, or some kind of race that we don't know about yet. I think what makes Blackbeard special isn't a unique race or ability, I think it's just his lineage. I think Blackbeard's ancestors are Nefertari D. Lily and Nerona Emu. Now before you click off this video for this outrageous take, let me explain. Throughout the story, the world government has been very adamant about bloodlines they see as threats. We've seen it with them trying to find and kill Ace to extinguish Roger's bloodline, or trying to kill Luffy because of Dragon's bloodline. And the fact that Blackbeard's bloodline is brought up as a concern by a Gorosei member makes me believe that Blackbeard follows the same pattern. I also don't think the Gorosei were even aware of Blackbeard's bloodline until very recently in the story. In chapter 907, Shanks secretly meets with the Gorosei to talk with them about a certain pirate, who I think was Blackbeard. Then, in the following chapter of 908, we get this panel of the Gorosei saying Cobra wants to speak with them, and they reminisce about the Nefertari family being the sole bloodline to not become Celestials, labeling them as traitors. Obviously, since Cobra is a subject of conversation, they are bringing up his family's history. But if Shanks did tell them about Blackbeard's bloodline, I find it very interesting that the very next chapter the idea of bloodlines is brought up again. Kinda like Oda is super foreshadowing how Blackbeard is connected to the Nefertaris, which I know still sounds insane, but bear with me. Another thing I want to bring up is a connection between chapters 907 and 1107. In 1107, Saturn asks Katarina and Augur what they are after, and they answer with the world. Chapter 907's title is called The Empty Throne. It's the first time we learn that there's even a throne that someone can claim to essentially rule the entire world, which Emu secretly does. And correct me if I'm wrong, but 907 is the first official name drop we get of Rox, and what was Rox's main goal? To be king of the world. The same thing Devon and Augur tell Saturn their goal is. And again, 1107, we get Saturn mentioning he knows about Blackbeard's bloodline, and if Shanks was talking about Blackbeard's bloodline in 907, that's another connection between these chapters. And since I randomly saw how 1107 and 907 both end in '07, I decided to check chapter 1007, and what would you know? Oda talks about bloodlines again, specifically Kaido's bloodline elements that Vegapunk used to create Momo's artificial devil fruit. Not saying the last part connects, but very interesting how they all happen to mention bloodlines. Let's go back to the very beginning. 800 years ago, the 20 kingdoms defeated the ancient kingdom to create what is now the world government. Nefertari D. Lily was among these 20 kings and decided not to become a celestial dragon. We don't know why Lily decided this, but we do know that she scattered the poneglyphs throughout the world and seemingly never returned to her kingdom of Alabasta, and she left a single note emphasizing the importance of the poneglyphs and the D-clan's true purpose. Nefertari D. Lily is the core of this entire theory. I'm going to explain what I think she did that connects her to Blackbeard. A popular theory that is key to this is that Lily was the founder of Amazon Lily, which I also believe to be true. Since Lily was one of the 20 kingdoms to align themselves against the ancient kingdom, we have two possibilities this leads us to. Lily was truly an ally in this alliance, or she was a double agent secretly working for the ancient kingdom, kind of like how Vivi was the princess of Alabasta and working as a double agent inside the Baroque works. As of now, it can go both ways since we still don't know, but I'm going to side with her being totally aligned with the 20 kingdoms and later realizing she made a grave mistake that she tried to rectify. I believe that Lily and Emu were in love, and that fell apart when Lily realized how evil Emu was. Another reason I believe Lily ultimately switched sides was because of the atrocities she may have witnessed when the 19 kingdoms and their families rose to celestial status. What I mean by this is how the celestial dragons are portrayed in the story. They believe themselves to be gods, they have absolutely zero value for human or any life, they keep slaves, they abuse their slaves, they take women against their wills to become their wives, they kill innocent people, the list goes on. After witnessing all of this, I think Lily planned to escape the Holy Land. This also included scattering the poneglyphs throughout the world, as well as trying to free as many slaves as she could. You can parallel this to what Fisher Tiger did later in the story, which also connects to Amazon Lily, because he freed Boa Hancock and her sisters. Now when Lily escaped the Holy Land, I think she took all the slave wives that were there and escaped on a ship and ended up getting to a very close uncharted island, which later became Amazon Lily. The most obvious connection for Lily finding this island is in the name. I think she founded this as a safe haven for all the women who were taken against their wills to become wives for the Celestials. Maybe they were even shipwrecked there, and that's the reason why no one went back to their actual homes. Now let's talk about Amazon Lily. Amazon Lily is the perfect spot to hide and protect people. It's located on the Calm Belt, which is the spawning ground for sea kings, and it has no wind or sea currents to propel ships on, making getting to the island almost impossible by regular means. It's only recently with Vegapunk's technology that he figured out how to coat the bottom of ships to become undetectable to sea kings, which is how marine ships can now come to Amazon Lily. The island is also stated to be built like a fortress, which means it must have been built to protect something important. It's an island inhabited solely by women. Men are not allowed on the island and are killed if they somehow get there. There's also two mysterious things that happen only on Amazon Lily. That being, the empresses can contract a love sickness that is fatal unless they leave the island and commit to their love. The other mysterious thing is only women are born on the island. For some reason, Amazonians never give birth to men. These two mysterious things that happen only on this island are the biggest pieces of evidence that I think might explain what happened to Nefertari D. Lily. Curses are a common thing in One Piece, whether it's the Devil Fruit curse of not being able to swim, sword curses, or Zunisha curse to walk the seas. But what do we really know about curses and how they are made? Now I want to connect Lily and why these mysterious things happen only on Amazon Lily. Remember, I think that Emu and Lily were in love until she betrayed him. I think this brings us to two scenarios, which are that Emu cursed Lily to never fall in love again or it would kill her, or Lily cursed herself to never fall in love again and the future Amazon leaders because of a prophecy. And what's this prophecy I'm referring to? Remember, Lily was literally there 800 years ago, so she should know almost everything that's written on the poneglyphs and what's on Laugh-Tale. And we know from Roger's flashbacks that he was too early for whatever he found on Laugh-Tale, but was convinced his son was going to be the man everyone was waiting for. So if Lily and Roger know the prophesized ending, it's kind of like they know one half of the puzzle, and if we connect the two, how is Roger so sure that Ace is going to be the next Joy Boy? And if Lily founded Amazon Lily and built it like a fortress and created curses, there must be a reason why. Well, I think the prophecy foretold that a male would be born from an Amazonian empress who will either save the world or destroy it. You might be able to guess how Roger thought it was going to be Ace, but I will touch on that later. I think this prophecy is referring to Luffy and Blackbeard. Obviously, Luffy would be the one who saves the world, while Blackbeard becomes the next Emu, depending on whichever of them win. And this is why I think Lily tried to stall this prophecy with these curses until the right time came, just like what we saw in Wano and how they knew Joy Boy would come and save them 20 years later. This is just on a much grander scale. Like the situation with Ginny and Bonnie, I think that Lily was pregnant when she escaped the Holy Land. I think the reason she cursed herself and the island was to delay this special male from being born because Emu was at full power at this time and the ancient kingdom defeated, and I think this man born from Amazonians is also key to Emu's plan, which I will talk about next. On a side note, what if Joy Boy is constantly reincarnated in the same bloodline, just like how Poseidon is in Neptune's bloodline? The Sea Kings foretold of two sovereigns returning, and we know Shirahoshi is one of them, and Luffy is most likely the other. So both sovereigns reincarnating in similar ways would make sense. We don't know much about Emu either, but it's almost certain he's the same Emu from over 800 years ago, meaning someone must have performed the immortality surgery on him. And I think an insanely huge clue to figuring out anything about Emu is Law's Devil Fruit. So, to connect Emu's plan, let's talk about Law's Devil Fruit, specifically what Doflamingo said to Law during the Dressrosa arc. A lot of people forget this, but Doflamingo might actually know about the existence of Emu. Doflamingo is a former celestial dragon that was on the run from celestials trying to kill him, and that only stopped because Doflamingo figured out the secret treasure of the Holy Land. And Doflamingo said if he had Law's fruit on the specific day he figured out the secret, he would have gained ultimate power and control of the Holy Land. He even lists the two most important powers of Law's fruit for his plan. Obviously the immortality surgery, but the other one that I think always gets overlooked, the personality switching technique, a technique we saw Law use on the Straw Hats in Punk Hazard. This has been theorized before, but I think Emu personality swapped his mind into a more powerful body, maybe even into a body that can control ancient weapons like we see Shirahoshi do, and potentially Momo. I think the immortality surgery is important because living forever means you stay in power forever, but the real way to take control of the Holy Land is the personality switching technique. If the general basis of Emu's plan is body swapping, what would be the best body to swap into? Well, I think it's obvious. Who in the story has an abnormal body? Who in the story can eat multiple devil fruits? Who in the story do we not know their origin but has a special bloodline? Marshall D. Teach. I think Emu's plan was to have a son with Lily, and either through a combination of both their lineage factors, and maybe with the help of experimenting, they would create a son who has one of the deadliest powers in the story, the ability to consume multiple devil fruits without dying. When that son would be born, Emu would then personality swap into his son's body and become the most powerful being. Remember how Saturn was experimenting on babies and if they could get devil fruit powers through infusions without having to eat the actual fruit. And remember with Bonnie's power, the younger you are, the stronger her devil fruit power is because the future possibilities are higher. And when you start to grow up, the possibilities become limited. Not saying Emu would have used Bonnie's power, but there must be a reason Saturn was performing these experiments on babies. I think it connects to Emu. To further elaborate on Saturn's experiments, I think his experiments are the reason why Blackbeard can eat multiple devil fruits. When Saturn was performing experiments on Ginny, he was surprised to find out that the sapphire scale side effects also transmitted to Bonnie. So what if Saturn performed experiments on Lily while she was pregnant? And whatever those experiments were, maybe it worked or the side effects resulted in Lily's bloodline being able to eat multiple devil fruits. But Saturn wouldn't have known if the experiment was successful or not because Lily escaped. I also think Emu is trying to find the right wife to have this special son. We still don't know what celestial dragon wanted Ginny as a wife, but what if it was Emu? How would have a celestial have had their eyes on Ginny like the story tells us? Maybe this celestial saw her through her bounty posters, which is the same thing we've seen Emu do with Vivi. And Vivi is someone Emu currently wants in the story. Is this him wanting a new wife? Is this because she looks like Lily and he has a chance at his plan again? Does it have something to do with the Nefertari lineage factor because some people theorize that Vivi will be able to control Uranus? If it does, maybe Lily somehow figured this out and tried everything in her power to stop that from happening, to go as far as to set up home on one of the most protected islands in the story, potentially trying to stop or stall the prophecy of a male being born from an Amazonian by creating the love sickness curse and somehow cursing the women of the island to only have females. So how did Lily even create these curses? I think the answer to that is the love fruits and Ivankov's fruits awakening powers. To start off, I know the love fruit's power is basically just turning people to stone if you love, lust, or find the user cute. But I think there's a chance it could have a hidden power. I think the love fruit's awakening could possibly be the reason for the love sickness on the island. If it is, we know paramecia awakenings affect the environment. So maybe a past user awakened on something only empresses encounter, which is why it only affects them. And maybe the awakening flips the power to affect the user. What if when an empress finds someone they love, it turns their heart slowly to stone, which is why they ultimately die unless they give in to the love. I just find it interesting that a love sickness affects the empresses and Boa Hancock just happens to have a devil fruit called the love fruit. I can't help but think that these two things connect. And Blackbeard has had his eyes set on taking Boa Hancock's devil fruit for a while. Currently, we don't know why he would want her fruit because even though it's powerful, Boa Hancock herself says it's powerless without having the beauty along with it. But we can assume that he possibly wants to unpetrify someone. In this panel, Boa says that even if she dies, the people she petrified can't be unpetrified by a new user of the fruit. Maybe Boa Hancock was lying to save herself, or maybe not, because if Blackbeard wants to unpetrify someone or something with the fruit's power, it almost had to have been frozen by a previous user. Now for how there's only ever women born on Amazon Lily. I think the easy answer for that is Ivankov's devil fruit. He has hormone powers and can genetically alter people's hormones at will. One of the many things he could do is change people's genders. So if we go down the awakening route again, what if a past user of this power used its awakening to genetically alter all the women that were on Amazon Lily 800 years ago to only have female children? So all of the future descendants would get this same ability to only have female children. Maybe Ivankov even found this fruit on Amazon Lily. I think there might be clues that the revolutionaries have ties to this island because Kuma sent Luffy there and we never saw Amazon Lily as one of the islands he visited in his flashback where it showed all the other Straw Hat Islands that he later sends each crew member. You might even be asking, well, if all the women are genetically altered to only have females, how are males like Luffy and Blackbeard born? Well, I think the answer to that is having both parents be D-clan members, which I will talk about a bit later in this video. Now, how is it possible that Blackbeard is related to Lily and Emu? Well, like I said, I think that Lily was pregnant with a child, and with the curse of only females being born on Amazon Lily, she gave birth to a daughter, thus denying Emu of the male body he wanted. We also know that the leaders of Amazon Lily are always the most beautiful and strongest warriors. It's not an hereditary monarchy. So if Lily was the first ruler, it wouldn't be the case that her descendants keep ruling, which might have been another way Lily protected the prophecy. But I think one of Lily's descendants did become a ruler eventually, that person being Gloriosa, and I'm sure you can guess where I'm going next. I think Gloriosa is Blackbeard's mother. Gloriosa was the empress 3 generations before Boa Hancock. She would also be around the right age to be Blackbeard's mom. and she also left the island because she contracted the very same love sickness that Boa Hancock did for Luffy. Currently, we don't know who Gloriosa fell in love with, but I'm 99% sure it was Rox D. Zebek. We know Gloriosa was part of the Rocks Pirates, so wouldn't it make sense that she's a part of the crew of the man she was in love with and not some random character we're never going to learn about? And if I'm right about Gloriosa being Blackbeard's mother, and she somehow figured out about Blackbeard being her son, isn't it very interesting that Gloriosa was the one to find Boa Hancock and bring her back to Amazon Lily? And Gloriosa is dead set on living on Amazon Lily where she isn't wanted. It's kind of like she's watching and keeping an eye on Boa Hancock for Blackbeard, since Blackbeard needs her fruit for something. Now let's talk about Rox D. Zebek. We already know that Blackbeard and Zebek have a connection, we just don't know how. And it's even more interesting that Blackbeard somehow knows about him because when Zebek died, Blackbeard was only 2 years old. We also know from Sengoku that the world government basically deleted any information on Rox and his crew from history, so how would have Blackbeard been able to research him? To go off topic a bit, the reason Rox was erased is because he broke too many of the world's taboos, which I can only presume was researching into the Void Century. Another thing that never sat right with me is why the world government would go as far as they did to erase Rox from history unless he was super close to getting to Laughtail, figuring out Emu existed, or were they scared of his bloodline, or all of the above. Because if the world government seemingly killed Rox at God Valley, why wouldn't the world government exploit that knowledge? Print it in the papers, keep the stories about it going on, because if they killed one of the strongest pirates to ever exist and defeated a crew full of future Yonkos, that would be a huge detriment to current and future pirates. The Marines could basically say, if Rox couldn't beat us, what makes you think you could? Now back to how Blackbeard somehow knows about Rox. Roger's biggest rival was Rox, very similar to how Luffy's biggest rival is Blackbeard, right? And we know that Luffy and Blackbeard mirror and parallel each other in many ways, so the same thing could probably be said about Roger and Rox. Well, Roger had a son named Ace, and how did Ace get his name? He got it from Roger's sword, which was named Ace. So what if Rox named his son after his sword, which was named Teach? And what if Rox's sword was the only possession a young Blackbeard had? When Blackbeard was 12 and joined Whitebeard, he just said his name was Teach. That's it, not Marshall D. Teach. So maybe he learned of one of his true names later on. And what I mean by this is Marshall D would be his mother's name, paralleling to what Ace did in the story by taking his mother's name. And Blackbeard's ship, the Saber of Zebek, would literally be referring to himself since his name came from Zebek's sword, and it would kind of secretly be telling the world that Rox's bloodline lives on. And what if this special sword was given to Rox by Gloriosa and has a very important meaning? I think this sword is the very same sword that Nefertari D. Lily once had and is the sword she never placed below the empty throne. Maybe it was passed down through her descendants, eventually to Gloriosa. If Blackbeard now has this sword, it would symbolize that he has a claim to the empty throne, like Emu does, because having that sword shows that his family never submitted fealty to the throne like the other 19 families did. Now, why doesn't Blackbeard sleep? To explain this, we must look at Blackbeard from ages 2 to 12, because he was 12 when he joined Whitebeard's crew, and during that flashback of the Roger Pirates versus the Whitebeard Pirates, we get the reveal from a young Buggy that Blackbeard has never slept in his life. So we have all those previous years unaccounted for. So what was he doing, and how did he become an orphan if Gloriosa was still alive? Well, Blackbeard would have been 2 years old when the God Valley incident happened. What if Gloriosa left a baby Blackbeard on Amazon Lily for safekeeping and protection while she went with the Rocks Pirates to God Valley? So who would have watched over baby Blackbeard during this time? Shaki. She was the Empress after Gloriosa, and we know that Gloriosa and Shaki are on great terms because Gloriosa lived with Shaki and Rayleigh for a while before moving back to Amazon Lily. We also know that there have been attempts to attack Amazon Lily in the past because of this panel. What if when the Rocks Pirates were battling on God Valley, the world government knew it was the ideal time to invade Amazon Lily while their Empress was gone? They end up attacking the island, and during the chaos, a baby Blackbeard was sent away, and he became shipwrecked on the closest island there was, an island we are very familiar with, Ruskaina Island. This is the island that Luffy trained on for 2 years during the time skip, and where he learned Haki. I think this island is the reason that Blackbeard never sleeps. If you look at this panel of when Rayleigh is telling Luffy about the island, he says something very interesting. He says, "You better get stronger quick if you want to sleep at night." This was referring to all the dangerous creatures and beasts that inhabited the island. Luffy during this time was already incredibly strong, so that wasn't going to be a problem for him even without Haki. But for someone like Blackbeard, who would have been a baby during this time, literally impossible. Now maybe Blackbeard was shipwrecked with another person, and that's how he was able to be fed and survive the earlier years. But what if that person eventually was killed by the creatures on the island, and Blackbeard, still being super weak, couldn't sleep at night or else he'd be killed? After years and years of enduring this, Maybe Blackbeard just adapted to never sleeping again because it grew a part of him. The only thing keeping him alive to fend off the beasts was his father's sword. After the God Valley incident, Gloriosa would come back to Amazon Lily for her son, find a battlefield, and find out she wasn't welcome in the island anymore because the Amazonians would blame her for leaving and not protecting the island. The reason the island would be saved is because of Shaki, and this would promote her to become the newest empress. A baby Blackbeard would be missing, and Gloriosa would presume he was killed. Little would she know, Blackbeard would be barely clinging to life at the closest island nearby, and too young to even remember who his parents are. I think there also might be clues on how Blackbeard eventually left Ruskaina Island. I think a clue to that are Blackbeard's pirate ships. His ships are always just log rafts that don't really fit the bill of a pirate ship at all. Maybe a younger Blackbeard built one of these rafts to leave the island, and these log ships he uses are a callback to that. We even saw something similar when Saul was trying to leave Ohara. And Luffy even tries making a log raft to leave Amazon Lily. If Blackbeard was stranded on this island when he was young, it would kind of parallel to when Garp would leave Luffy in the jungle to train when he was younger. The only difference being Blackbeard's jungle was much harder to survive than Luffy's. Another couple of small details I want to throw in are that when Luffy was done training on Ruskaina Island after the time skip, it showed the island was in its winter season. In the panel right before a young Blackbeard joined up with Whitebeard, it shows a snowy island with mushrooms. I bring these up because it also connects back to what Luffy said to Sanji in Drum Island about people from snow islands not being able to sleep or they would die. If Blackbeard was stranded on Ruskaina Island, technically it isn't a snow island, but also kind of is since it experiences 48 seasons in a year. Also, the panel with the snowy mushrooms I think is important because it was right before Blackbeard is picked up by Whitebeard and it connects to the snowy island idea again, and mushrooms have a big connection to Amazon Lily. I also want to bring up another super popular idea that Blackbeard already ate a devil fruit before his darkness fruit, and that it's a zone fruit, so he would have all three kinds of devil fruit powers. If Blackbeard was stranded on Ruskaina Island, maybe he found and ate a zone devil fruit there. It would be fitting for a zone devil fruit to be on this island because it's literally an island full of strong beasts. Another connection I want to talk about is the theme of flowers used on Amazon Lily. Every single empress and Amazonian all have names associated with flowers. Emu even has a chamber in his castle called the Flower Room. In an SBS, someone asked Oda what flowers each supernova best describes them. Blackbeard's flower was a red spider lily. Obviously, the immediate connection with lily being in the name again, but let's take a look at what the red spider lily represents. It's a very important flower in Japanese and Chinese cultures. The flower itself has many names, but the main theme of all the names is death. The flower symbolizes death and was even believed to grow in hell and guide spirits in the afterlife. In the real world, these flowers usually grow around cemeteries and were placed with bodies when buried to ward off scavenger creatures that would try and dig up the deceased bodies. The flower wards off creatures because it's poisonous. This is a huge connection to Ruskaina Island where I believe Blackbeard is stranded, because on that island there was this plant tree that literally had the same function. It was a safe spot on the island and would ward off these giant beasts that lived there. It repelled them just like the red spider lily repelled scavenger creatures. There was a similar tree that was also in the movie Strong World called the Daft Green that Oda even mentions in an SBS are the same. The only difference being the Daft Green is poisonous like the red spider lily and the Ruskaina Island tree isn't. So I can see how a young Blackbeard would have survived living near this tree plant, not knowing why it repelled the beast and why Oda chose this flower to represent Blackbeard. The flower also symbolizes separation and abandonment. When it's not being associated with death, another name it goes by is the abandoned child flower, which fits Blackbeard perfectly since he was an orphan. The red spider lily also comes with its own mythology. It's a flower that was given to two elf guardians to watch over its two cycles of growth, assigned by none other than the sun goddess Amaterasu. And I don't even have to explain how a sun god is important in One Piece. They eventually disobeyed and met each other and fell in love, eventually resulting in being cursed by Amaterasu to never see each other again. I think this story might hint at Lily and Emu's love curse, but also Blackbeard because just like the story, maybe his bloodline was cursed by a previous sun god in the past. The last connection and parallel I want to talk about are similarities between Roger, Ace, Dragon, Luffy, Rocks, and Blackbeard. We know that Roger was too early to do anything when he learned the true history on Laugh-Tale. He also tells Rayleigh that his son will be the one to do what they could not, even though Ace wasn't even born yet. And this panel from chapter 550 is very interesting. Roger tells Garp to protect his unborn son. How would Roger know that his child was going to be a son and not a girl? I think this is extremely important because it has to do with how Joy Boy reincarnates or details on how Joy Boy will return or be born from. Since Roger knew the true history of the world and the prophecy just like Nefertari D. Lily most likely did, I think he tried to control fate and make his son Joy Boy. Remember what I said in the beginning about how I think the prophecy of the Chosen One is born from an impossibility, that impossibility being a male born from an Amazonian. Well, since Roger knew that secret, I think he had a child with an Amazonian to make Ace to try and create the prophesized Joy Boy. I think Portgas de Rouge was from Amazon Lily and she fell in love with Roger and she got pregnant and settled in the South Blue. The South Blue is also the direct sea underneath Amazon Lily. We know when Amazonians fall in love, they have to leave the island, and we know the Amazonians can travel over the calm belt. So if Rouge was hiding from the world government, traveling to the South Blue would be the easiest way to do that. Are there any clues that Rouge was from Amazon Lily? I think so. I looked up if there was a Rouge flower or plant to follow the pattern of Amazon women having flower names, and I found a bunch with Rouge in the name, one in particular that looks like the flower that she wore in her hair, called a Parapluie Rouge. But I would like to point out the wiki said the flower in her hair is a pink hibiscus flower. Regardless, I think it's interesting that she wears a flower in her hair just like Gloriosa does, and the fact that Rouge technically is a flower plant as well, so it fits the pattern of Amazon women having flower in their names. Now, Rouge could possibly be the missing Amazon Empress we don't know about, but I think there's a twist for that because Ace wasn't Joy Boy. I think Joy Boy was prophesied to be born from an empress, not a regular Amazonian woman, because the love sickness only affects the empresses. And I think the missing empress is Luffy's mom, and the twist could be that Luffy's mom and Ace's mom were sisters, possibly even twin sisters, both equal in beauty and strength, making them candidates for empress, but there can only be one, and Luffy's mom was chosen, but Roger fell in love with Rouge nonetheless. It would be cool if this is the case because then technically Ace and Luffy were blood related. I also think Dragon knows that Luffy is the prophesized reincarnation of Joy Boy because of these panels. It's like he already knows that Luffy will have a great purpose in life, which is surprising because Dragon didn't raise Luffy or have any interaction with him in his life. I also think it takes two D-clan parents to create Joy Boy, or just a male from Amazonians in general, which is another reason why I think Roger thought his son was going to be Joy Boy since he was a double D-clan member. And if Gloriosa is one and had Blackbeard with rocks, then Blackbeard is also a double D-Clan member. And if Luffy's mom is a D-Clan member, then he would fit this bill as well. Luffy and Blackbeard parallel each other in so many ways, but Ace and Blackbeard also parallel each other. If Zebek is Blackbeard's father, then Ace and Blackbeard both share the fact that they never met their fathers. On one hand, Ace hates Roger and doesn't want to carry on his legacy or have any connection to him, whereas Blackbeard must admire his father and wants to carry on his legacy since his flagship's name is called the Saber of Zebek. If Blackbeard is Zebek's son, why didn't he take his name? The answer to this is exactly what happened to Ace. Since Ace carried Roger's bloodline, somehow that already sealed his fate to the world, without the world ever even knowing who Ace was as a person. This is why Ace took his mother's name and not Roger's. I think Blackbeard didn't even know about his true name till later on, but did the same thing and took Gloriosa's last name, which is Marshall, because if he were to take Zebek's, the world government would try to instantly kill him to end that bloodline. And isn't it funny how both Blackbeard and Ace ended up joining the very same crew and having a surrogate father in Whitebeard, where Ace really wanted a father figure and Blackbeard was just using Whitebeard for a means to an end, since Blackbeard still carried his father's will, unlike Ace. I can even see that final endgame battle or a Marineford 2.0 in the future where Blackbeard's lineage is revealed, just like how we got Ace and Luffy's bloodlines revealed in Marineford. Well, if you stuck around to the end, I really appreciate it and hope you like the theory, and that's all I got for now. Until next time.